Greetings, welcome to 3 Lanes number 34. And this, as promised last time, we'll be doing a part 3 of an analysis in the watch industry. This one specifically would be for smaller brands. And listening to the last two, so many numbers can be really confusing and uninteresting unless you're really into that. So this time I'm going to try to be more off the cuff and try to give it more context. Just maybe read a statement and kind of like try to explain it best I can. Uh, yeah. Well, refresher. This podcast was started to help me in my public speaking. I know this is a different way to do it because I'm really not speaking in front of people. But if I publish it, then somebody might find it, and it better sounds good. And I listened to it as soon as I finished, and I criticized my own recordings just to help me improve. I have encountered that it actually helped me when it comes to presentations and sometimes to keep track of what I'm actually speaking about. It's been helpful. Well, there's just an insight of why this was started. And secondly, I do it because it's something that I think, or I assume it's not out there. I mean, I haven't found it. So I cover topics that I think are interesting. As you may or may not know, I'm back in school, and a lot of the subject, not the actual subject, but how I approach the subjects is practiced from MBA approach. So yeah, those are the two main items that why I do this, or three you could say. One is for me. Second is to help me improve my communication skills, and three is because something that I think it's interesting. All right, without further rambling, and when my brain a little bit mushed because this week has been tough. I had to write a paper, a white paper for financial analysis of the industry that I'm trying to cover. So that is that was a challenging, trying to find all the research, make sense of it, and put it in a way that it makes sense and it's interesting to the reader. Again, let's stop rambling. Okay, let's go into the microbrand watch markup analysis, and let's get into it. So small independent watch brands usually operate with off-the-shelf components sometimes, right? Like, for example, movements, cases, and dials. That's something different. But they operate under different cost structures than big luxury watch manufacturers. And this results in markups that are both lower and more strategically justified through different business models and value propositions. So let's get into the microbrand markup reality. So luxury brands, as we mentioned last time, it's 500 to 600% markups, mainly because of all the expenses that are not manufacturing related. But micro brands, they operate in more modest margins. For let's put Christopher Ward, for example, one of the most successful micro brands that a lot of people say that it shouldn't be called micro brand anymore, and I think we're getting there if we're not there yet. They've been around for a long time. It's a brand with almost, you could say, almost heritage. It's been, I don't know if 1 or 2 decades that they've been around, and it's a recognized brand now. It's not something that that is just, it's new. Not really. They even push the envelope a little bit when it comes to complications. And they famously implement a maximum of 3x markup, so kind of like 200% markup, compared to some Swiss brands that mark up by 34 times. So the markup from Christopher Ward is way less. This represents a dramatic difference in pricing, obviously. So some specific micro brand that I have been able to find is obviously Christopher Ward. It's 3x the manufacturing cost. Uh, but usually we can find between 20 to 50%. Um, then budget micro brands might be even less, right? Like as thin as 10 to 30%. The ones that are usually one man show and stuff like that. Then premium micro brands, something maybe even higher than higher in quotation marks than Christopher Ward, or somebody that wants to position themselves higher, can be 40 to 60%. Uh, Manufacturing cost structure differences. In this sense, what what am I trying to say? So the cost of manufacturing the watch can have different approaches, right? Depending on what components you choose. So there's a bunch of off-the-shelf movements like Seikos, Miyotas, all the Japanese, uh, Swiss like ETA or Celita, and this, depending on the movement, that's the price that you will pay, obviously, right? So ETA movements can vary from $50 to $400. Uh, Miyotas can be like $100 each, and probably the cheapest Seiko like the NH35, you might be able to find it for uh, around $30 the per unit. Um, Manufacturing examples that we can find are cost around 65 to 95 per complete watch, using quality movements like the Seiko, right, Miyota. And if you total that, let's say $100 rounding up, and if you apply the rule that we were talking about before, between 20 to 50% markup, then you would have a $300 watch, right? That's kind of like along the lines of what you could find a Seiko movement, a Seiko based um, watch out around, right? Like something along those lines. Uh, Distribution costs in this case, you uh, you might not have authorized dealers, right? Because the brands are relatively small. And some cases like Christopher Ward, I know they have a spot in Texas. But traditionally, dealers require 30 to 40% margins. Uh, there's no wholesale distribution because you're not gonna sell to different boutiques, different places. It's not like, your microbrand is sold at, like for example Topper or Watches of Switzerland or stuff like that. They might like later when you get bigger, but not at the beginning. Direct to consumer sales. That's basically the way most people go, and there's no retail markup. So that 25% that you might see, you're not gonna have to apply it to your watch. So it becomes a cheaper piece in the sense of cost for the customer, not the cost for the manufacturer or the watch manufacturer. There will be way less marketing expenses, right? You're not sponsoring Formula One. You don't have to endorse celebrities. You don't have to. Well, you do digital marketing all the time, but you're not gonna spend as much. You're gonna be social media focused, so you're not gonna have a bunch of banners on different websites or pay different websites for to advertise your stuff. A lot of times it's going to be word of mouth, which is not paid most of the times. Uh, Low infrastructure, you save there because you don't have physical boutiques. So let's say $15,000 to $30,000 on rent costs. You're not gonna see that. I mean, you're not gonna have incur those costs. Minimal showroom expenses. Again, unless your brand is one of those bigger independent ones, you might be in at different shows or at different places. Like I know Topper, they carry some independent watches, but independent brands, sorry, but they have to be a little bigger than usual, right? It's not everybody that they will carry. Um, you would get an online platform cost for sure, but I don't think a website is that expensive, especially if you do it yourself. Streamline operations, and you as an owner would be the only one working on your brand, and it will be like 5 to 7 hours per week. I guess, right? As soon as you establish everything, your process and your brand, that might be like the common amount of hours that you would apply when everything is already set. That's a guess. That's a very wild guess, right? I don't know. I would have to talk to any new brand owners to see how much time they use for their brand. Value justification strategy, and micro brands justify their markup through different value propositions than luxury brands. So one of them is design originality, right? So that you have to have what makes your brand different. Sorry, is it? Oh, we could put an example of as Arcanaut, right? Arcanaut, they have definitely a different case. They don't have a bracelet on their watch. The way the strap attaches to the case is very unique. It's through a screw. Uh, they have way different uh, dial variations and dial materials that they use that really nobody has done it before, I would dare to say. I mean, some of them they might, but not everything that they do, man. They do some crazy shit. Sorry, crazy things. I'll put the the notification on when I upload the podcast that this one is gonna be explicit. Um, you have to have unique designs, like I said, like custom cases, hands, dials. Uh, Sometimes they have limited production runs. For example, Spinnaker, they do all their crazy and fun watches like with the Secon, but those are limited. They did this. Well, they keep doing SpongeBob stuff, but those are limited. So in that sense, you kind of guarantee that you're gonna sell the stuff that you make, and you don't have to overproduce watches, right? So you don't end up with a bunch of watches that you don't sell. You guarantee that around this amount of watches, I'll for sure sell. Personalization options. Some brands, like what is the name of that brand from here from the Bay Area? Is it Bay Area Watches? Let's see. Bay Area Watches. They do a lot of. It's not Bay Area, right? What is it? I owe you that one, but and I'm sorry to the owner because it's technically local to me, but hold on, let me investigate this. Okay, I'm back. It's Bespoke Watch Projects. They are the ones that are local to the Bay Area, and you can make your own watch. Their website even offers that option. So yeah, that's something unique, and not everybody does it, right? Like if you go to Omega, you have to buy whatever it's on the shelf. You're not gonna have personalization. You might be able to engrave, not the Speedmaster, but maybe something else that doesn't have a case back or a blank case back. Sorry, misspoke right there. But you also have to have quality to price ratio. So sometimes you might be able to use the same movements as luxury brands, Eda, Miyota, Seiko movements. Uh, you might be able to use high quality materials like sapphire crystals, premium steel, and ceramic components. Swiss manufacturing, sometimes that's a huge thing. So you can get people that can manufacture your watch in Switzerland, but you're obviously gonna pay more, and you have to have comparable finishing, so similar quality control and craftsmanship than some of, maybe not the huge brands, but like if you, depending on the price bracket that you want to be, you have to offer something similar in quality, right, to justify your price. Some initial investments that I have encountered uh, online, it's been around $5 to $180,000, with a median around $8,500. Minimum order quantities, like we spoke on the previous episodes, I found from 100 to 500 pieces. Swiss production startup is from 50K for 300 units, minimum order quantity. And basically, a basic microbrand lounge could be in between 1,500 $4,500. I don't know how realistic this is, but these are some of the quantities that are public, that are out there. Um, Next, we can move into operational cost, which would be salaries for your employees, if you're gonna have any. I don't think at the beginning you would be able to afford any, but depending on how many people you hire, and depending on the area that you are, staff salaries can change between, and depending on how many people, right? $8,000 to 15,000. Marketing and advertising, you might spend from 3,000 to 8,000. Website hosting, it's listed here as $2,000 to 5,000, but that's quite a bit. I mean, if you hire somebody to make it, maybe, but just for hosting a website, I don't think you maybe 1K, at most, and that's for multiple years. Inventory management, you might have to spend between 30K and 70K. I've never tried to hire a warehouse to manage my inventory. I assume microbrands would handle all those things from the home of the brand owner. Insurance coverage between $1,500 to $4,000. Again, might vary depending on the region where you're at, but you do might want to have insurance coverage, depending how much stuff you have in your in your uh, in your stock room, or whatever you're stocking your stuff, you're keeping your stuff. Uh, Marketing position and pricing strategy, price point analysis. So this is this is a little subjective depending on what kind of brands you're into, but it's entry level micro brands between 0 to $500, right? So, and I say zero, kind of like jokingly, as a range, starting range. Premium micro brands, and this is in quotation marks, I would say between $500 to $2,000. That upper limit of between 1,000 to 2,000 seems to be where we've seen a lot of brands nowadays, or where the interesting stuff starts to happen, at least for me, right? Because if you want to see different materials, different type of dials and all this stuff, that's where you most likely are going to find it. And even Seiko is moving to in that direction, which is interesting. Swiss made microbrands might be between 1,500 to $3,000, and might be even above that. But again, that's like an overlap of on this last two, and I think that's where the interesting stuff happens. Custom bespoke services, uh you might find something between 3,000 to $10,000, and I think that is, I don't know, that's a little above of what I'm willing to pay for a watch. Maybe, yeah, I would say yes. Competitive positioning. Microbrands offer more watch for your money, and this is by focusing on product rather than brand premium. Yes, a lot of times, honestly, I don't know if this is going to be a hot take, but the Tudor Ranger, man, I think that watch looks kind of cheap to me. And I saw it in person and I didn't like it. But that's just me, right? That watch is not for me. I would not buy that watch. If you have it, if you like it, great. Up to you. Props to you. But I don't like it. As simple as that. Um, there's more transparent pricing on smaller brands. Yeah, more brands are coming forward being a little more transparent about it. Like we talked about Christopher Ward, they have made this stuff public. Um, direct relationships, that is a fact, man. If you go to events like Warren Wound, or sorry, Wind Up, you can interact with most of the times the owners of the brands, which is so cool. These people are so nice. And yeah, you can debate. It's like, oh, it's customer service. They have to be nice. It's yeah. They can. They don't have to. If they don't want to, might as well just don't attend or just hire somebody to be there in your booth and just represent your brand. But a lot of the times is the same owners are there, and you can talk to them, and they're nice. They give you the time of day, just their time, just to answer as many questions as you may have. Nicholas from Fears, great guy. The guys from Collective, Asher and Gabe, great guys. I know they're not watch brand owners, but they're so approachable. Uh, let's see who else. The guys from Arcanaut, approachable. Tipsim, uh, super approachable guy. Matt. Who else? The guys from Notice. Those guys are cool. I like them. Uh, the guys from Christopher Ward. Everybody from Christopher Ward. Actually, it's really great. Mr. Jones. Great people there too. I can tell you the list of brands that are a wind up, and all of them are probably going to be great people. Value conscious positioning. Yes, a lot of the time they offer the quality without the luxury brand tax. And one of the examples is Christopher Ward. Perfect example. I bought their super compressor when it first came out because that case is so good, man. But I still have that watch. It's been great this whole time, and it's a great watch. It's an actual super compressor. I'm never gonna go diving, but I know it exists. So I just like the nerdiness of all that stuff. But I digress. Markup justification through business model. So in the case of microbrands, they kind of justify the markup because they have different approach to the business. So in the case of microbrands, they have we can talk about volume versus margin trade-off because they have lower per unit margins. So this means uh, because they go direct to the customer instead of going through boutiques and uh, wholesalers. That's how they make their money. So that's how they are able to price it lower. They have to have more efficient operations because of the same, right? They don't have enough people to cover everything or to do everything. So they have to be more efficient, a scalable production, and they have to grow slowly from hundreds to thousands. So they have to create that scale so they can, in case they come with innovations like Christopher Ward, they can spread the cost of that innovation of the R&D through so many iterations of the watch. There's community driven growth. So instead of being sponsoring Formula One or any race that they can think of, it's the community that makes the case for the watch or the brand to be worth it and to move it forward and to bring it out and make it popular. Risk management. This is the last point that I want to make. And unlike the luxury brands, micro brands must maintain sustainable pricing because they have limited financial resources. So if something goes wrong, they cannot absorb major losses. They depend on their reputation. Poor quality management can really destroy a small brand from 1 second to the next. By the way, I have a story about this, but I'll leave it for the end. No brand equity cushion. So cannot rely on the heritage to justify premium pricing. And there's a brand like Fierce. They do have heritage, but they don't rely on that. They and I've heard Nicholas say this many times, and I interviewed him one time, and he was telling me that, and I heard him say the same thing over and over in like multiple podcasts after that. But he was saying that they are a brand that have heritage, not what is actually, I'm butchering his words. So it's not. It's basically that they're not relying or sleeping on their laurels just because they have heritage, right? They just happen to have heritage, but they want to be a good brand for the customer. That's the bottom line. Disregard that I butcher his words, but it is what it is. Market sensitivity. They're more vulnerable to economic downturns. So if something goes wrong in the market, so if some people are not buying watches, these brands are not, or they cannot say, well, we're gonna buy less stock, right? And or we're gonna jack up the price because there's people still asking for our watches, or we're gonna lay off or certain percentage of our employees. They can't. They only have one employee maybe, which might be the owner or like a few more, and this makes them really vulnerable to economic downturns. And that's why, I don't know, I think it's good to support small brands. Honestly, that's where my shift for watch um, enjoyment is going, more supporting small brands. I'm straying away from big brands, not because I don't like them, but because, the people in small brands are great, and I really support what they're doing. They're having fun, and that's what I like. So in conclusion, we can say that, yeah, microbrands might be using some of the shelf components, and that they really operate different than big manufacturers or big luxury watches or big luxury watch brands. And usually a 3x max markup is what helps them keep the lights on compared to like a 34x markup from bigger brands. And where the luxury brands can use this markup to fund all the massive expenses that they have, their supply chains, their marketing campaigns, uh, the development of the so-called prestige of brand, right? Microbrands, they don't have that, and they use the markups to fund either product development, quality control, or they focus on the customer service excellence. And their success is not just to apply the markup strategies like luxury brands, but they need to create value from the beginning. So the point of view from luxury to micro to independent brands is completely different. Smaller brands focus on design, innovation, quality materials, uh, direct customer relationships, which I think that is one of the key things, man. Uh, and this results in a business model that it's better for everybody. It gives everybody the chance to experience quality watchmaking, and it maintains sustainable profitability to the smaller brands, rather than excessive markup and people just getting rich just for the heck of it. It wouldn't be people that enjoy watchmaking. It will be people that just enjoy money, and that's not what we're seeing in the watch industry. And I think that's why smaller brands are thriving so much now. and I'm all for it. I really like it. I enjoy it. And the last thing that I wanted to leave you with, and it was kind of like reputation, and what was the other one? Uh, what was the point that I was trying to make? It was basically quality, reputation dependency because of poor quality, right? That's what I was talking about. So I did not experience a poor quality watch. Uh, it could have been um, user error, which is me, right? So I have and it's a watch that I really like. I I enjoy so much. It's the Brunswick, the why I call it the original one, with the white dial. But that watch, I use it all the time. And one day I was winding it and it was not winding, and that's a manual wind watch. So I message Fears, I emailed them, and right away I got an answer. I got a label to ship my watch to get service here locally in the US. Sent it, maybe a couple weeks later, got it back working perfectly fine. And I have forgotten to send a thank you email after all that good service. And that's what I wanted to leave you with. It's a great story. It was great customer service, gotta say. I might be biased because I really like Fears, but I'm biased for a reason. I've always had good experience with them, and I really can't complain. This has been 3D Lanes number 34. I hope this helps understand how micro brands operate, and I would like to close this part 3, and this is the last part that I'm going to do with the watch industry, kind of like finances. I mean, unless something else comes up, but I would like to leave this 3 parts as a cool section. Hopefully people get as much benefit as understanding the industry as I did. So thanks for stopping by. I appreciate your time. Thanks for listening. See you next time.